Hi, I'm Erick Hailstone. I've been teaching for Yamaha at worship events for the last 12 years, and we've been doing a series of videos. We started off using a small Yamaha amplifier called the THR-10 and a small keyboard called the MX-49. And with those two devices and a laptop computer, you could pretty well do full music production. In our second video, we brought in this device here. This is called the Line 6 HX Stomp. And the HX Stomp will do hundreds of different effects, modulation effects, delays, reverbs, distortions. It does amp emulation, it does speaker emulation, impulse response. So you can take a device like this and perform without a guitar amplifier at all. And recording-wise, you can capture all those things as well. So you do near silent recording with headphones and this kind of device. We've got a couple of Line 6 devices today. This is called the Helix LT. You can see the biggest difference is the difference in size. So for a performance, the Helix LT with all of these different foot switches allows you to get to lots of different sounds and also to manipulate those sounds in real time in some really, really interesting ways. I mean, we're going to take a look at some of those things, and also I'm going to take you through an array of sounds. The HX Stomp is power-wise half of this device. This has two processors, this has the same processors, but only one of them. But one of the really great advantages of this is for someone who's using a traditional pedal board. You know, you've already got stomp boxes that you've been collecting for years and years, and you really want to use those. You can use this on the pedal board. Size-wise, I mean, look at the difference. You can see how this would set up on a pedal board quite nicely. A lot of guys are using this traveling, and if they get somewhere and the backline amplifiers aren't up to par, they'll use this, go directly into the PA. Some people are doing that just to keep the production values to their likings. You could use this with in-ears, keep the volume level down on stage, and get the sound that you used in the recording. Carry all of the sounds that you use for a particular project with you all the time. So that is the advantage to this device here. Recently, I was invited to play at a church that I used to work at, and it was really kind of a homecoming, a lot of fun. And they informed me that we're not going to use guitar amplifiers. We're all going to be using in-ears, and figure out, you know, how I wanted to do that. So I chose to do it with Helix, and once I got the song list from them, I started looking around and seeing if someone had already made sounds for this. You know, I've been programming these things for a long time and am capable of doing it, but there's nothing better than finding the perfect preset if it's already done. Well, I found a company called Worship Tutorials. I liked the quality of their presets, so I went ahead and purchased this. The song is a Phil Wickham song, and it's called Great Things. So once you have a preset in Helix, one of the features are something called snapshots. So when I press these two buttons here together, I go into snapshot mode. Now each one of these foot switches corresponds to a part of the song. As it happened, the charts they were using were from a company called Praise Charts, and the snapshots lined up perfectly with the chart. So in the beginning it says intro. Here's the sound from that intro. The next snapshot, snapshot 2, is for the chorus of the song. And sometimes these are pretty subtle differences, but it's interesting that they've dialed things in to this degree. We go to verse. Here's a section called turn where if you hear me go from one to the other, you can hear the gain go up, so they've actually added kind of more power to it. I come over to the bridge. Modulation has been added to it. The bridge build section brought more gain into it, a little bit more aggressive. Finally back to the chorus. And that pretty well covers the tune. They put one other preset here, they call it swells. And even though this isn't part of the tune, it's a handy thing to have, because nowadays a typical thing in worship music would be if someone was speaking or you had a transition going from one song to another, guitar player could play a pad, basically, sound like this. So, this is the song Great Things. I'm just showing you all of the snapshots. It was interesting, the person doing front of house that day at the church is an old friend of mine, and he came up to me afterwards. He goes, "Man, those sounds were just terrific." And I got to tell you, the guitar player from Phil Wickham's recording lives here in town, and he played here a month ago and played that exact song, and those sounds sound exactly like that. So kudos to him, and kudos to Worship Tutorials and the job they do. I have a couple other patches. If you go to their website, they give away 2 or 3 patches. And this one is their AC30. This has impulse response with it. I just want to run you through. This particular sound. Right at the moment, when I hit the mode button, each one of these buttons allows me to turn on the different stomp boxes that are part of this sound. And one of the cool things about this emulation is when I back off on the volume, just like a good amp, it cleans up. You can hear this. It also has a setting up here called swells. And in the same way that I mentioned before, you would use this for a pad, for an interlude between songs. So you've got that as part of this patch. You've also got something called a glitz verb. It's a similar sound. And for those of you who are familiar with kind of ambient reverbs, you've heard this before and you probably recognize it. This is an emulation of a really great reverb that an awful lot of people use in praise and worship. You have a button marked amp gain. You can think of that as a boost anytime you want. And then 808 is a really well-known green distortion pedal. But just listen to the range of things you can get just with those pedals there. Finally, up above, we've got 2 delays. One is an eighth note dot delay. The other, you can hear it ping-ponging across. All of those things and you start getting pretty wet, but this is a really, really common thing in praise and worship. Hit the mode switch. Now we're at a point where we can select other presets. Each of these buttons corresponds to different presets that are here. Just switching through one to the other. Press these buttons over here twice and we go into snapshot mode. You can see that. If you hit either of these by itself, it will take you over to the next bank of sounds. So, this is a sound by a Nashville guitar player named Michael Britt. What I like, where the praise and worship sounds are particularly wet, particularly ambient, these, like there's still a delay there, but it's really low. And for my normal playing, this is the types of sounds that I would use. And I go in here and start turning off distortion devices. And it cleans up really nicely. I have certain effects here that I would use on certain types of gigs. You can add in these various distortions. You have 3 of them, so you can add them in stages. So maybe a light crunch, a bigger, more aggressive distortion. Anyway, Michael's sounds are great, can't recommend them enough. You'll find plenty of things there. One of the things that I'm trying to get across is really how usable this is without a guitar amplifier. I mean, I'm old enough that I started off with, using amplifiers, and I've seen most effects come along when they actually were first invented. So kind of through the whole history of it. So the idea of doing this without a guitar amplifier, I find it shocking. But right now I'm plugged directly into the Helix and it's coming out of the Yamaha PA speakers behind me. These are a powered 12 two-way. And I find this amazingly good. So I'm just going to select from one preset to another. This one's called Cleanish. So if I go to the back pickup, the treble pickup, you can hear there's still a little bit of crunch there. But if I roll off the volume, it really cleans up quite nicely. Again, I hit the mode switch and I can go in and start turning on and off effects. So I can add more distortion. I can add a compressor. In this case, the compressor is being used as a boost. Here's a delay. modulation. This is an optical trim, and I can set this speed exactly the way I want it, or I can set it up so with this bottom right-hand switch, I can tap in the tempo and have it switch wherever I need it. So on a live performance where things are changing, you can set it where you want. If you're in a performance where you're using tracks and you're going to have a specific tempo all the time, you can actually dial that in and just leave it that way. So this is like a AC-15. One of the things in the past, I would have to say, with modeling products is they did distortion pretty well. But when it was time to get a clean amp sound, a nice warm, they hardly ever were able to do that. And Helix has really changed that. It really sounds great doing clean amplifiers. And of course, you can turn on the equivalent of a stomp box and you'll get the same kind of interaction you would get if you had the actual boxes and the actual amplifier. So here's another kind of famous British chimey. Here's one marked Big Solo. And as you would expect, more distortion, larger, bigger, more aggressive. Just added a note an octave lower. It's interesting, the button up here is marked mix. And I can hear, by pressing that, it changed the delay setting. So listen to this. Okay. So that ping pong delay is brought up louder in the mix. All right, here's a Black Lux. For live performance, you can do this without an amplifier directly into the PA system. And for production, for recording, everything that we're doing here that we can do for live performances also adds to production skills. I also want to add that when you buy a Helix pedal like this, you can buy for an additional $100 a program called Helix Native, and I highly recommend this. Helix Native is this device. All of the processing power of this device in a plug-in that you can use in any DAW, in any computer. And the advantage there is if you're traveling, you take a laptop, a small interface, and you're good to go. Any of the sounds that you have in Helix Native, you can download into a Helix foot pedal like this as well. Helix comes with a program called Helix Edit. Helix Edit allows you to program all of the different parameters in this piece of hardware from the computer. This operating system by itself is really easy to use. It's really fantastic and really logical. But when you have Helix Edit, you can see all the parameters right there on one screen. And that's a huge advantage there. Plus, all of the banks of sounds that you have are available to you in a real quick and easy way. It's easy to take several banks of sounds and create a custom bank just by copying and pasting that way.